Time for a little sports. And I know we're finally to the time when we're going to get draft day from the NFL. And I'm looking forward to it. Believe me, I can't wait.
You got to watch that Kevin Costner if you've never seen it, John. That draft day show is actually kind of fun. All the craziness and the trades and all the rest of it. And I just thought it would be kind of fun for the two of us not to take too much time on it. And then we can go to the Vikings because I got something pretty exciting there. But when it comes to the draft, here's what I'd love to hear from you, because you know football backwards and forwards, ups and downs and everything. Played for the Chicago Bears, played a lot of different colleges. We called them Samsonite for a reason, folks. But anyway, so when it comes to the NFL and the trading, do you think this year is going – I mean, everybody's expecting to see, well, these guys are going to trade up. These guys are going to trade down. This team's going to do this. This team's going to do that. It could actually end up being, John, where they just stay right in line for the most part. Maybe there's a trade or two. Last year was a record-setting year for trades in the first round. So I'm throwing this out to both of us, but I'll throw it out to you. Do you think it's going to be a year where they do stand up and they do make all the trades that everybody seems to be thinking it's going to be? I mean, moving up to 5th pick, moving down to the 10th, moving 9th. Oh, I got 2 picks in the first round. We're going to go all the way up to the top 5. What do you think is going to happen actually when it comes to the time? Are we going to set another record for trading, or are people pretty satisfied with where they are? What do you think?
Well, there's a lot of talent out there. Yeah. So, granted, we've got people like you had on your sports show yesterday, Pete, Joe Alt from Notre Dame. There's only one Joe Alt in this year's draft. There isn't a second one. There are other really good players, but there's only one Joe Alt. As far as quarterbacks, you and I have gone back and forth. Are there other Caleb Williams? Hell yes. There's Michael Penix. There's even, Bo Nix. I mean, I'd love to see those two side by side, Pete, and see, okay, which one really wins out, because I don't think there's that much difference in the top quarterbacks, even with Penix injuries that have obviously no injuries while he was at Washington that kept him out of a game, but prior when he was at Indiana and so forth. So that's the wrap on him, if there's a wrap. But his mechanics and everything else, my God, I mean, there are some great quarterbacks available. J.J. McCarthy, Daniels, all of these guys. So I would not trade up, Pete. Honestly, I wouldn't, because we've all seen number 1 picks fall flat on their face. Ryan Lee, we've seen that. So he came out highly touted, barely in the league 2 years. And I think that a lot of this is you got to also manage your payroll, Pete, because not just for the owner, but because NFL rules, you can't exceed that salary cap. And so I would much rather have my 2 first-round picks rather than going out and getting a free agent that I'm going to have to spend $60 million for and break my salary cap room. So yeah, I would, if I were a GM, I would not be trading. I want all those picks because I got them for 4 years for next to nothing compared to a free agent.
So true. And I think that's exactly where I stand too. I think there is going to be a trade or two. I don't think it's going to be as many as people think. People are probably estimating right now, maybe there's 6 or 8 trades in the first round itself, maybe. And then after that, maybe another 15 or 20. But those are the later rounds anyway. But people are focused on the first 2 rounds mostly. But I would say this, if there's one trade that actually kind of makes some sense to me, it might be the Chargers, who have the pick number 5, John. And the only reason I bring that one up is Jim Harbaugh's there. They've already got their quarterback. They love Herbert. He thinks the world of him. So what he needs, maybe it's an offensive lineman, maybe it's whatever, but if somebody wants to trade up, they're probably not going for that. They're probably going for some quarterback, depending on how things go and how the first 2 or 3 picks look. So I would look for the Chargers to be one of those teams where they can trade down and maybe pick up a couple of picks, Minnesota Vikings or whomever, if that we start to see some of those trades. But I don't think it's going to be as crazy as last year. If it is, it's going to be the most fun draft ever. But I just don't know that it will. I think they've kind of lined up and it's like, all right, here's who's number 1, Caleb. Here's who's number 2, just all the way down. I think those top 3 or 4 will be the big influence unless somebody makes a big move to get up in there. And I'm not sure I see that. So I think maybe at number 5. All right. Minnesota Vikings, John. I got this one for you because I thought that you'd think this was pretty interesting because I did. I used to work at NBC Sports for a while when I was living in Connecticut and doing all the fast money stuff and all the stuff back in the day. But I worked a little bit with NBC Sports as well, John, and I worked with Mike Florio. Now, Mike Florio, one of the brilliant guys, Pro Football Talk. People see him all the time on TV or radio, or they, however they either take in, whatever. But he had something really interesting that he put out there the other day that, I don't, knowing that it's Mike Florio, I think it actually is meaningful. So here's what he said. He goes, Brady, I believe, wants the phone to ring before the night or after the draft. And he's talking about Tom Brady. And he said, here are the teams that I think Tom wants to play for: Raiders, Patriots, Broncos, Vikings, or Washington. Now, it's not going to be Washington. Washington's going to take their pick, right? Drake May or whatever. But, and then there's the Patriots. Does he go to the Patriots again? Does Tom Brady really do that? No. I mean, he could. But could he go to the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, that makes a very interesting thought, to go forward, is who do the Vikings pick? Because they're in a position where they need a quarterback bad. They got nobody. Sam Darnold is their best guy right now of 2, and Sam Darnold's not very good. So where does that put them? And do you think Tom Brady's coming back? Because all things, here's what he said. He wants to roll the dice for 1 year, and he is considering the fact of a team that might have interest. He might have interest as well. And this is despite the fact that he's got that contract with Fox. So Brady is out there saying it's possible. Florio's out there trying to name the teams. What do you think about this, John? Does Brady really come back? And if so, who's the right team? Because he better have a good offensive line. He doesn't need to get hurt at 45 or whatever he is.
Right. Well, the Vikings, as long as they have that receiver, Pete, Jefferson, Brady was lucky enough, smart enough to work with Belichick to get Randy Moss out there from the Vikings, when Randy was done, right? Randy's done, and all of a sudden they talk him into coming out, and all he does is crush it. With Tom just pitching him the ball. Can you imagine Justin Jefferson getting that ball from Tom Brady? There's no doubt in my mind he can still play. And is that the spot you mentioned once before, Pete, that what if they call him after the draft and say, tell you what, Tom, keep yourself in that great shape. Come on by every once in a while. And just in case Aaron Rodgers isn't able to play the whole season, we want you here. Could that happen? Oh, my God. I mean, if that happened, the NFL, it's the only thing that could be bigger than Taylor Swift, Pete. Would be Brady coming back as the quarterback because Aaron Rodgers went down again. And you and I both hope he doesn't. He's a friend. He's a good guy. I like him. We watched him play at Cal and, of course, up at Green Bay and all of 4 or 5 plays for the Jets so far. So I hope that doesn't happen. But that would be, if he isn't playing for somebody, Pete, I would not be surprised to see the Jets be able to say, okay, this is a piece that we need, and we're going to bring him into camp. I'd love that. The toughest thing I think for me, John, would be this. So you go through the draft. Now you might want Tom Brady, but do you have room for Tom Brady? That's going to be the other side of this whole thing. I mean, I know there's ways to manipulate money and everything else, and that's what probably any of those teams would have to do, because I don't think Tom's just going to come out there just for fun either. But It is interesting to hear him talk about he's keeping himself in shape. He would be ready. Maybe it's a late season ready, like you were talking. I mean, maybe somebody says, hey, look, Tom, first 8 weeks of the season, 10 weeks of the season, the heck with it, man. We'll navigate our way. But if we're somewhere close and blah, 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 maybe – he said he's keeping himself in shape, which is pretty damn interesting. It seems like Tom is not ready to hang up the cleats just yet, John. And we'll see. But that makes the draft that much more interesting, right? Because that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit as well for those that want to trade and all the rest of it. Could be interesting. Oh, yeah. It should be, like I say, for you and me, that's bigger than Taylor Swift. Yeah. But getting Taylor 1 year, 23, and getting Tom Brady in 24, forget about it. The NFL crushes every other sporting event in the world. But we'll see how that plays out.